Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage the Honorable Wilbur Ross, Secretary of the United States Department of Commerce, to moderate a discussion with Ms. Ivanka Trump and Ms. Barbara Humpton on workforce development.
Thank you. It's me again, and a big thank you to Secretary Mnuchin for being with us a bit earlier. I hope that you found his speech as informative as I did. Now we move to another really big priority of this administration and of this country, the American workforce. As I've met with a lot of you individually this week, biggest problem most of you have come up with is the workforce, and that's what we're here today to try to deal with. As every industry is being revolutionized by digital technologies, there's a growing need for highly skilled workers in every enterprise. Companies throughout the country are scouring community colleges, universities, technical training institutes, wherever they can find people. Employers are creating apprenticeships and are working with school systems to orient education more toward the practical needs of the workplace. Today, with the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years, there are 1 million more jobs open than there are people unemployed. Yet labor force participation rates remain stubbornly low, and there are pools of potential workers throughout the country who may benefit from the training they need to enter an exciting career. Workforce development is core to the President's economic agenda, along with tax reform, regulatory reduction, and free and fair trade. It's been part of the economic agenda from day one. And that's largely thanks to the person who's sitting next to me on the stage, Ivanka Trump. Thank you, Ivanka, for being here. It's my pleasure to serve with you as co-chair of the National Council of the American Worker. We're also joined on the stage by Barbara Humpton, CEO of Siemens USA, who thankfully has also taken a leadership role in these issues. She's a good soul in helping us. And Barbara's involvement has been driven in part by the success she has had at having her company adapt this very successful German training and apprenticeship leadership programs. So before we get going, let me just say a few words about our discussants. Ivanka, as everyone knows, is an accomplished author who has written 2 bestsellers, a very tough thing to accomplish once, much less twice. And before devoting herself full-time to public service as advisor to President Trump, she was an accomplished businesswoman with a popular line of clothing, handbags, jewelry, shoes, and accessories. As a graduate of the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, she has closed some very large real estate deals, including the wonderful Trump Hotel here in Washington. She's also been active in many, many charities. However, most important of all, she's the mother of 3 children, and we know how hard that is in and of itself. Ivanka is truly committed to rebuilding the U.S. economy. She understands how important manufacturing is to local communities and to the workers that are the backbone of the country. We're also fortunate that Barbara Humpton has agreed to participate in this discussion. Barbara is one of America's leading executives, CEO of Siemens USA, which employs 50,000 Americans and has more than $23 billion in revenues. The company is an international powerhouse with more than $5 billion of exports from the U.S. alone. And prior to joining Siemens, Barbara was vice president at Booz Allen Hamilton, and earlier was a vice president at Lockheed Martin. She's passionate about workforce training issues, and she's a member of the President's American Workforce Advisory Board and is helping to develop and implement a long-needed national strategy to train the next generation of skilled workers. Barbara is providing the National Council for the American Worker with the latest thinking and experiences from business, education, our states and cities, organized labor, and other institutions that have a role in educating and training American workers. Thank you both for being at the SelectUSA Summit. So let's get started. This is a question for both Ivanka and Barbara. Why has the workforce issue risen to the highest level of importance in industry and government? Ivanka?
Please.
Thank you, and thank you so much, Secretary Ross. It has been, first of all, a great honor to be included in what is a truly remarkable annual summit. I think this is the 6th year that this has been ongoing, and the number of deals that have been generated through this dialogue is truly impressive. So I know this year is the biggest and most robust yet. So I applaud you for your leadership on that front. The reason this room is full is because the president has fulfilled his promise of ensuring that we adopt pro-growth policies and pique the interests of investors, not only locally, but from around the world.
Right.
So we worked very, very hard together to ensure that tax reform, long overdue tax reform and tax cuts were put into place, not only to benefit American families, which our tax cuts do, as evidenced by all the data showing that Americans are taking more after-tax pay home. Their hard-earned dollars going back into their pockets where they belong, but also cutting the corporate rates to ensure that American business can compete with business everywhere else in the world on a level playing field. So having passed through a massive tax reform package in the last Congress, coupled with an aggressive deregulatory agenda. And when I say deregulatory, common sense deregulation.
Right.
So for years, we've had layer and layer and layer. It's sort of like the licensure issue of regulation put into place that some cases is very well intended, but doesn't yield the ultimate end goal, or in some cases is just antiquated. And were put in place for a different economy and for different needs. So we are pulling that back very aggressively, maintaining the regulations that are important for safety and wellness of obviously the American worker, society at large, and all of the other elements that are so critical, but pulling back the layers that have impeded business and thwarted growth, especially for small businesses and entrepreneurs. So today, I am here doing something that President Trump committed to doing early on in the days when he was campaigning, which is really being a cheerleader for this country. And he's made it very easy because of what the administration has been able to accomplish to make sure that this room was brimming with people who are interested in the opportunity and investing their capital right back into the United States of America. So I welcome you, I applaud you, I think you're clearly making the right decision, and we're gonna ensure that we're doing everything within our power to rise to the occasion to make sure that your investments have the pipeline of talent coming out of our schools, K through 12, our apprenticeship programs, which we're expanding rapidly, and then working in collaboration with you and with the private sector to ensure that mid and late career workers have the opportunity to continually be trained in the skills that are relevant in this incredibly fast-moving digital economy. So one of the things that as a nation and across the world, we need to disrupt is the fact that education happens during a finite period of time in our lives. And this is something through the development of a national workforce strategy in conjunction with the best and brightest minds from across the country. Barbara is on our Workforce Advisory Board that informs that work. Tim Cook, Ginny Rometty, some of the great educators, bipartisan governors and mayors from across the country. We're thinking about the development of a national workforce strategy that is responsive to the skills that are in high demand for the lucrative, high-paying jobs that exist and are being created every single day by people like yourselves. So I applaud you. Thank you for being here. And thank you for your commitment to the American worker, because today we'll be announcing that 60 different companies representing 12 different countries will be committing to reskilling close to 900,000 American workers through apprenticeship opportunities and reskilling over the next 5 years. So thank you for that incredible commitment. And Barbara knows, as a foreign-based company with substantial investments here in the United States, this is not only the right things to do to give back to the communities and the communities from where your workforce has come, and ensure that their skills remain sharp and relevant for the jobs that are being created by your companies, but it's also good business. There is a positive return on investment for this continual investment in what is the best workforce in the world. So thank you for having me here, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Barbara, what are the biggest challenges and opportunities your company faces in the U.S. labor market?
Well, I'll just say, first of all, thank you so much, Secretary Ross and Ivanka, for inviting me to be part of both the American Workforce Policy Advisory Board and to be here today with all of you. A year ago, I began my role as the CEO of Siemens USA, and SelectUSA was one of my very first official duties in my new role. It's been a fantastic year. And when I received the call from Secretary Ross asking for my participation in the board, he said something very, very important, which is, this is a commitment to action. We're going to get things done. And that is absolute music to my ears, and I know music to the ears of business people everywhere. As Ivanka mentioned, tax cuts and basically changing the regulatory landscape so that we have the conditions to advance our businesses, that's incredibly powerful. And so now the greatest challenge we have is also the greatest opportunity. I think with the record low unemployment in the US, businesses are looking in all kinds of new places for the talent they'll need for the future and drawing more people off the sidelines into the workforce. And so we really suffer from, I'll call it a stigma and a myth. The stigma is that manufacturing is that dark and dirty business that, of 50 years ago. And in fact, what's happening today is an absolute revolution, an evolution of manufacturing to bring in new digital tools. But that brings us to the myth, which is that robots are going to take over our jobs. And I know you've been talking about this with some other panelists today. Honestly, the way we view it at Siemens is that technology helps us to elevate the role of the human. Technology helps us expand what's humanly possible. And so what I'm looking forward to is working with others like us, Siemens, here in the US, because as a community, what we're able to do is work collaboratively to draw more people into the workforce and teach them the skills of the future.
And just to expand on that for a moment, if I may, Barbara, and I'm glad you brought it up, but technology also enables us to achieve inclusive growth of populations that had previously been marginalized or unable to do certain types of work. So today, I am very proud that in this country, the unemployment rate for Americans with disabilities is the lowest in history. So technology is enabling people to work with heavy machinery, augmented by robotics. So it is just a remarkable thing. And we see this in terms of the numbers. You mentioned people coming off the sidelines. In the fourth quarter of 2018, 73% of the Americans who got jobs came from the sidelines of the economy, not from unemployment. So people are coming back because there are great opportunities.
Right.
People who had been out of the workforce, women have been disproportionately benefiting from the Trump economy. 60% plus, actually, of all new jobs created, of the close to 6 million new jobs created since the election, have been secured by women. So it is an incredible moment in time, and it allows, to your point, employers, and it really forces employers to get creative in the way they should be getting creative about how they're hiring, open up the aperture in terms of who they're interviewing, which is something that we've been working very closely in terms of the council. But we wanted the advisory council, we wanted this National Workforce Council to be, as Wilbur said, action-oriented. And I think the fact that we're now sitting up on the stage, having secured close to 10 million new training commitments in less than a year by the private sector to invest in American workers is remarkable, that in and of itself. But additionally, we didn't want this incredible group of individuals to come and give us a report that gets put on a shelf with 30 other reports that look just like it and collects dust. So what we asked the Advisory Council to do for us, in addition to fueling the pledge and encouraging their supply chain and their friends to come along and sign it, is we gave them 4 very specific and tangible items that we wanted them to work on. Sorry. Number 1 is to create a campaign to promote multiple pathways to career success. We know that there are multiple pathways in America. Today, we have the lowest unemployment rate ever recorded of Americans without, with some college, but not a degree, working in the workforce. So incredibly low unemployment rates. And we know that there are many pathways to achieving career success outside of a 4-year college route. They just haven't been prioritized in the same way. So we love our university ecosystem. I would argue, easily, that it is the best in the world. But it is not the right path for everyone. So exposing people to the different opportunities in the skills trade that is high-tech work that doesn't require a 4-year college degree. The second is ensuring data transparency, and that each employer knows when they say, each job seeker knows what skills are required to fill the job vacancies, the 7.5 million job vacancies that exist, and each employer knows where potential workforce is, so that there's a better match in terms of the data that is being generated by the private sector and the US government to enable a transparency that benefits all. The third is around HR practices and modernizing them to make sure that second chance hiring becomes an opportunity, that jobs that don't require a college degree, HR professionals aren't inadvertently excluding qualified applicants because of the questions that they're asking. So really rethinking that process. And then the fourth, very significantly, which Secretary Ross has been such a champion for, is making sure that we're quantifying the value of this investment from an ROI perspective. Because companies' balance sheets sort of play games when it comes to workforce development and workforce investments, and this is an asset. This is an asset that's being created for the employer, and it should be categorized as such. And we should have real measurable metrics around what is working, what constitutes investment in their workforce and continual education, and making sure we're sending a clear and consistent message. So we are quite excited about all of these goals, and Barbara has been really leading the way on this last one.
Thank you.
All right, well, a number of people here have asked, how can businesses best partner with government, educational institutions, and other organizations to develop a skilled workforce?
Oh, I'd love to jump in on this one because there's a cool thing happening right now where communities across the nation are really getting active on this topic. You know, what we're realizing is that no one business can provide all the skill training, and as Ivanka said earlier, we're no longer in that period where you can go to school for 4 years and get everything you need to know for the rest of your life. We're looking to educational institutions to prepare people not for jobs, but for careers. We're looking for businesses to join together and help create ecosystems of skills development. And I'll give you an example of one Siemens has gotten involved in. We do a lot of smart infrastructure, you know, the technology that's in buildings to make them more comfortable and secure. Well, how many building managers do you think are graduating out of high school programs today? What we've needed is to help create a pathway so folks can get certified in the technologies for this kind of work. We created a non-proprietary skills training program that we're making available through community colleges. Non-proprietary is important because what we're finding is that helping our competitors, helping our customers actually helps the whole community. So what's great about a venue like SelectUSA is the idea that you, in one place, have access to all of these departments of economic development for the states. You have access to secretaries of commerce from the states. It's sort of one-stop shopping to find the right communities for the kind of work that you want to bring here to the U.S.
Right. Well, this is another question for you, Barbara. What factors do you consider when you're contemplating a new investment in the U.S.? And how do you ensure that Siemens will have the highly skilled workers you need?
Great question. And people don't realize that the work we do here in the U.S. accounts for about 1/4 of all of Siemens business globally. This is our largest market by far. And Siemens is over 170 years old. In 1847, when Werner von Siemens started his business, it would have been a garage startup if garages had been invented. But what he did is, in his business, he actually chose to come to the US. So we've been here for 160 years and making investments all along the way. Why? Well, because there is such a rich customer base here, right? We can find people who need all of the products and services we provide as a large infrastructure company. But more than that, we have access to talent. We have access to this educational system. My colleagues from Siemens around the globe want to take rotational assignments in the US because of that opportunity to participate in this very vibrant economy. But one of the most critical things is the rule of law and the regulatory framework that allows us to own our intellectual property and know that we can propagate that as we grow here in this very fascinating market of ours. And actually, one of the things I want to share is, in addition to all of that, is the idea of a rich research and development community. Our university system actually brings many of the best and brightest from around the world into contact with us so that we can do joint collaborative development. And what we've started doing as Siemens over the last few years is then building out, making investments in a business ecosystem. I've had colleagues at Siemens have a fantastic idea, spin that out into a small business in which Siemens ourselves invested because we think this is something that's going to not only disrupt us, but advance us. So the small business ecosystem that exists here in the US is incredibly powerful. We've figured out that based on the work that Siemens does around the world, we account for job creation of about 800,000 Americans. Think about that. So yes, it's more than the 50,000 Siemens employees. It's the work we do for others on behalf of the corporation.
Well, that's great. Well, do either of you have any closing thoughts? Because I'm afraid we're running out of time, and I know there are a million topics to be discussed. Well, Ivanka, do you have a closing statement?
Well, I think everyone's here because we've at very least piqued your interest and the opportunity to invest in the United States if you haven't done so already. But we would encourage exactly this action for all of the reasons that we've mentioned. There's no better place to exist today and tomorrow than in the United States of America. And we'll ensure, working in partnership with each of you and with American educational institutions, whether they be community colleges, our four-year universities, and plus, to make sure you have the workforce that you need and to make sure that the American workforce continues to be the best and the brightest anywhere in the world.
Well, I'd just like to make one closing thing, which is those of you who've not filled out a pledge, there's still time.
Yes.
And so my staff will have the forms. I'd be very grateful if we could sign up another couple of 100,000 people before we leave this conference. So thank you for your attendance here.
And also, no pledge is too small. We are really excited to be working with small businesses as they think about reskilling their workforce. So we've had businesses come to the White House website, sign the pledge to reskill 3-4 workers, which is a big commitment if you're a small business. But they recognize that it's the right thing to do for their workforce, it's the right thing to do for their company and their company's future. So however big the pledge is, whether it's large, like some of you who have signed, we've had 2 pledges signed for 1 million reskilling opportunities, or whether it's 1 worker that you're offering an apprenticeship to or on-the-job training opportunity to. We encourage it all, and once again, thank you for your participation today.
Well, now that Ivanka has hinted there may be an opportunity for the White House, you really better sign up. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, panelists.
Thank you.